unfortunate because there is a little bit of place for trash talk. It's one of the reasons why everyone loves OG so much. But you can't cross that line. Once the admin comes in and says stop, it's time to stop any further, and you're then putting your team at a disadvantage, as they did just now. You mentioned it in the aftermath of the previous game. FG have not quite no reserve time left, but that draft penalty did take it away quite significantly. So they do have to deal with that. Also, I am being informed as well, we have a new player in the lobby. Sexy Fat will not be playing in this game. They've got Heiko back in to serve as that stand-in. So he did play in a similar position earlier on in this event. They call upon him again here, and as much as it sucks for Sexy Fat not to be able to play, that's probably the best call to make.
Yeah, it sucks. It's unreliable. You'd love to play with your full roster, especially with how successful they were in the previous game, in that early game. But you do what you got to do. If they can pull out something again, I think their big issue was really finishing out the game. Their plays really stopped after a certain degree, and that's where they definitely gave a few openings to Team that they surged in and immediately took. And there are some slight differences, of course, going for the Storm Spirit as opposed to the Leshrac, because the Leshrac was banned out, and it's another huge comfort hero for Suits. Will it work in the same degree? That's hard to say, because Storm Spirit is a very different hero. You don't have nearly as easy a time getting on those tier 1s. It's a kill hero. It's something that you use to snowball the game, and then hopefully you have enough damage for it. Team have picked into it a little bit, especially with this support duo. Both of them are very vulnerable to the Storm Spirit, but that's where this Tiny will also feel very effective. We've seen Ryoya play, again, that active mid laner, and while it is not the Queen of Pain, it is going to feel very easy for him to make plays. We've seen Tinies pretty much throughout the entire day getting their Blink Dagger around that 9-10 minute mark. Nobody's going for the Phase Boots build anymore. They're immediately going for it in starting plays. It's that perfect catalyst to start off the early game.
Yeah, and that's become the norm now, because that's what the teams have really needed. You don't have time to sort of deviate and get that minor item beforehand, because you really need the Tiny to be making his mark as early and often as possible. So I'm going to be keeping tabs on the Tiny in that regard. Meanwhile, for FG, that Dark Willow pick is, well, it's a little weird. The Dark Willow doesn't really see a whole lot of attention in the current meta, so to speak. Not that it's still not useful, just a lot of heroes that tend to maybe get focused in on because they have more mobility. The Dark Willow has lots of lockdown, but not always the ability to maneuver around the map in the way some other options, like the Mirana, for instance, have at their disposal.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, we also don't see either team really valuing or going for the Pangolier. Of course, there is the Bloodseeker already in the field, so I don't think Team wanted to go for that avenue, especially because you look at their first 3 hero picks, the Bane, Mars, Mirana, they are all incredible comfort picks for every single player. Brax and Mars, name a more iconic duo, and more importantly, Flea and Mirana. Every single time this man gets to play his Mirana, it is an absolute show. He always is able to find those very tight arrow timings, and it feels very difficult to lane against. And that's where the Dark Willow raises more questions for me, because Mirana, of course, can break your TP. That very easy combo where you TP out during the Shadow Realm is not really available to her. So her survivability is not the best. You're definitely picking it because it is something to throw into that Mars arena. And of course, it is very obnoxious whenever you're Mars and you get forced out of it. At the same time, Bane is also another hero that has to stand relatively still. So it's another one to throw into that terrorize. But you also set up this Lifestealer pick, something that Sammy Boy is really comfortable with. And okay, they last picked Tidehunter, even though Team are banning out carries because they put Mandy on the Bloodseeker yet again. But honestly, this is a strange one. I feel like Team really got every single hero they wanted, and I don't think FG really answered them in the same fashion they were able to in their previous draft.
And we saw on the back end of Game 1, which, again, Game 1 was a little bit strange, but the thing that was maybe not so much affected by all the other shenanigans was the fact that Mandy, in the late game stages of that match, the damage just wasn't there. You saw him in that very final engagement. He was going up against Ryoya in a 1v1, and that was a 1v1 that the Queen of Pain was just winning in a right-click battle. So if you're FG, I understand going for the Bloodseeker again, but now you are very much fighting against the clock. If it goes late, we've seen he really doesn't become quite as reliable in terms of that damage output. So they're definitely going to have to push the pace, try and force some of these fights early, take advantage of Heiko on that Tidehunter to really control some of those team fights. Otherwise, if it goes late, I have concerns about just how effective Mandy can be.
Yeah, and that's also where you're playing Tidehunter versus a Lifestealer. Of course, that lane, it's kind of whatever. I think Tidehunters really don't mind too much, especially with the damage reduction coming out from Anchor Smash. Whenever you lane versus a melee hero that isn't Jug, who of course can purge it off, and Lifestealer can purge it off in that same vein, it does feel like it's a safety play for your offlaner here. But I also feel like they could have gone for something a little bit greedier. It's heroes like the Morphling where I think that I don't think it was banned out, and I also think it would have gelled very nicely into the lineup, and then we get to see the Bloodseeker still have an effect on this game. You just play Bloodseeker versus Lifestealer, except you don't have to right-click him. You're an offlaner. You get to play around a much different aspect of your hero, where Heiko really needs to have a good game of this hero and a very tight game on this hero. If he ever whiffs on his Ravage, especially on a rage target, it is going to be an immediate disaster for FG.
Not a lot of room for error for them as we do get ourselves into the match. Second game of this two-game series after a wild opening to the two-game set. So, to be honest, as entertaining as game one was, kind of hoping game two is a little more predictable. Although we start with the DC here, so maybe not the most auspicious beginning, but we'll see what this pause is about. Not about anything. Okay. False alarm. We are good to go. But Team looking for the early smoke play, pushing their way out across the map early. So could see them try to make a move, and maybe this is in anticipation of their opponents trying for the same. Often when we see that Tidehunter picked up, there is that sort of attempt to get aggressive early with the Gush play, but not really sure that we're seeing that, especially with Heiko so far behind here. So instead, it's actually just going to be on Team to push in. They get the Nightmare down into the arrow, locking down King RD, but they're not able to finish him off just yet. That Shadow Realm does come through. That's going to keep him safe, and now Mike is the one who gets turned on, and in fact, it's King RD who gets the kill with the Shadow Realm damage, and now Ryoya, he's going to have to try and get out of here. He cannot get away from that Blood Right. He is so low. One or two hits could finish him off, but look at Brax hitting every single member of the team with the Rebuke. That is going to save his buddy's life, but that's still first blood going over to FG. Team like the aggression, they just couldn't quite finish off that Dark Willow in time.
Yeah, and it's a difficult decision to make, one that Brax ended up not going for, but you need to get the spear there. If you get the spear, you get first blood. If you get the God's Rebuke, you go for the fight. He tried to knock around the Dark Willow as much as he could, but without that, they didn't have enough lockdown, and he didn't want to end up with a spell he didn't want to going into his lane. So it makes sense, but it is unfortunate that they end up overextending because they thought they had enough lockdown for the Dark Willow.
And Ryoya able to time that out right. He TP's back to the lane, so he's not going to miss out on anything, but that does leave him without the TP for a bit. I don't think Sooths can do much with that, but it's worth noting, at least, that the Tiny will be out without that for a little while, but either a mistake needs to be made on Ryoya's part or a rotation would have to come in early, but we are probably too early for that actual scenario to play out. So Ryoya should be just fine here. Well, I say just fine. He's going to take a little bit of damage early, but this should really be a situation where Ryoya should just be able to hold his own.
Yeah, and neither one of these mid laners can really shut out the other. It is the farm fest that we typically see mid laners deal with nowadays. Both of them are very active, though. Of course, Sooths in that previous game playing the more farm-oriented style on the Lash, one that he could definitely adopt with the Storm Spirit, but you could also get a little bit more active. Unfortunately, he's going to discover that his small camp is blocked. Meanwhile, Ryoya has full access to his, so some heads-up play from Team and the entire reason why they ended up smoking that early, in addition to going for that first blood attempt.
Yeah, First Blood may have sort of backfired on them a bit, but at least they were able to take that camp out of the picture. Now, meanwhile, looking across to some of the side lanes here, this is a classic laning duo in the hands of a pair of heroes who are unbelievably comfortable with their respective choices. Brax on the Mars, Flea on the Mirana. So This is something that FG are going to have to be very sort of wary of. The durability of your position 1 Bloodseeker is not fantastic. He's tankier than most, but if you still get down that sort of spear into arrow play, then Mandy will have to be at least a little bit cautious of that. So you see him showing a little bit of extra respect to Brax, not playing too far forward, although as I say that, he does push in with the Blood right as Flea is sort of looking for the angle. They're going to start with the Rebuke into the spear. The arrow will fly out, and Duster is going to go down. So it's not onto the target that I was sort of mentioning, but it's the same game plan. They managed to find the kill. Brax now has to sidestep. The Blood Right will do exactly that, and that duo is just going to keep on looking for that play over and over again as they tie up the kill count at 1-1.
Yeah, it is a remarkably weak lane to actually pair with the Bloodseeker, and you really are playing versus one of the strongest, where any single time Brax is able to get that spear out, it is going to be a kill, especially Flea with the level 2 arrow. Sometimes he goes for more levels in the Starfall, but with what is really just him trusting his teammate, he's going to rely on that spell, and I think it's going to work out pretty handedly. Mandy tried to go for the intercept there to allow his gyrocopter to walk away, but that's where it's really hard for him to pressure. And look, even Flea just gets to kill the missile. Duster has to deny his own because it's always going to be very difficult for him. Ooh.
Oh! Duster has to step in front.
Good.
There you go.
No.
He may still die, but at least... Actually, no, he's fine. Okay. He's fine. Mandy's got his back with the Blood Right, and that is going to work out okay. To be honest, I'm not sure Duster actually needed to step in front of that. The Bloodseeker had plenty of HP, so he may have been fine, but all's well that ends well. They get everybody out of there. And meanwhile, down at the bottom lane, Mike is dealing with a couple of heroes pushing into his jungle. The problem is, this is a Tidehunter. Mike can't really do anything about this.
Yep, and it's a big reason why we see the Tidehunter picked up so much across the board. It's incredibly stable. There aren't any 5 positions in the game that can actually do very much versus it, and Mike's going for the courier.
Could Flea get
unfortunately.
Okay. I thought Flea was going to try to set up for the arrow. He's still thinking about it, and if he hits it, Ryoya's coming up from the south. Meanwhile, Brax does get taken down in the top lane, but the focus is in the river where they do bring down Zeus. Ryoya just sort of working as that trailer. Flea gets the arrow, and that just sets up all of it.
Yep, and for the second time today, seeing the Tiny plus Mirana combo, it is really gross, especially if you can time it out perfectly. There's nothing you can do. Once you get into that mid game, I think Mirana is one of those characters where you aren't a lion or a hoodwink or yeah.
Flea just free fires it, connects. Duster, where can you go? He's gonna
Brax.
If he hits that, that's a pretty easy kill, but Duster, that was actually a pretty heads up play. He cut down the tree directly in front of him, so Brax had to sort of shift targets at the last second. Still could have made the play, but the sort of shift up in the aim causes the miss, or I think we'll assume that to be the case, and well, Duster's able to get away, but that's a nifty move on his part, just to give 1 fewer trees for his opponents to hit him up to.
Yeah, and that's where, like we saw earlier, Brax did end up going down just because he did get abandoned by Flea for a moment there, but he's going to be fine. But yeah, mid, Ryoya just comboing him.
First round on Mike doesn't work out. Meanwhile, mid, yeah, Ryoya doesn't quite have the damage for that one just yet, but he's going to scare the Storm a little bit, and kind of seems to be the running theme for a lot of this. We're seeing some rotations, we're seeing some speculative plays here and there, but not a lot of these are really hitting home for the kill, but you like seeing both sides taking the shot at it, right? You don't really want them to get too passive at this point with some of the heroes that they have in their lineup, but...
Oh, Mike.
Okay, Mike. Cursed Crown onto him. And the haste rune was picked up by the Storm. He's trying to bottle up, looking for that last bit of damage that he needs. Meanwhile, the arrow from Flea from long range stuns up Duster. So Mike is able to get away. Ryoya is dropping a little bit low himself, though, and he is the one who gets picked off as that haste was still going for the Storm Spirit. And yeah, the ward there giving them the sort of high ground vision up the ramp to make the connection. And well, after all of that, it's actually just Ryoya who dies. That really did not seem like the way that fight was going down at the start, but nice play from FG, sort of scrambling reinforcements to the area, and they come away with a very valuable kill onto that Tiny.
And that's something that they can continuously do. That's the theme that was proceeding forward when Mandy was playing Bloodseeker in the last game, every single time he saw an opportunity, he was always TPing to lanes that previously it was the Leshrac setting up after the Yule Scepter was completed, but that's where Storm Spirit can definitely set up kills a lot sooner. Of course, you're going to fall behind a little bit earlier. You're not able to farm nearly as efficiently, especially not having that Pulse Nova, but it's having the stun, being able to sync up. That was something that they really had to be careful of in the previous game, is whenever they weren't able to actually break that rupture.
That's a big arrow onto Mandy, and they might just have a shot at this one. Mandy trying to get away. The Nightmare, though, is going to keep him locked in place. Flea, meanwhile, actually trying to keep Duster away, but that means he's not attacking Mandy, and Bloodseeker's going to be able to get himself away from this. Mike can't find the kill. He doesn't have the Brain Sap available, and he is just going to go down here. He uses the Brain Sap on to Zeus instead, just trying to live for a little while longer. That's a little bit too much from the Mirana. If Flea just turns around and starts hitting the Bloodseeker, they have a much better chance of picking up that kill. Instead, he tries to sort of keep the Gyrocopter away, and they don't get anything and lose both supports.
Yeah, that's a very unfortunate circumstance, and
they're going to jump in.
Kmart on this form. Oh, that's unlucky.
Vortex into Curse Crown. Brax is trying to get over here in time to help, but Ryoya is dangerously low. The Arena, though, comes through, but the homing missile is going to get the stun down. Does Karen have the damage, though? He just doesn't hit hard on the Willow, but Zeus is able to zip his way forward. They will find that kill. Duster is going to have to sacrifice himself on the backside of it, though. But now with Mandy coming in,
he's baiting.
They're thinking about it. Terrorize being channeled, not going to throw it just yet. I think they just spotted Mike sort of coming up through the river as well, so they're not going to pull the trigger on that one. But honestly, they got what they wanted initially. They take down the Tiny. It cost them their Gyrocopter, but they're going to be happy with that trade-off. And I think, did they spot out this stack as well in the west side jungle? Not entirely sure they got close enough, but maybe they suspect that it's going down. Flea, however, not just going to continue to stack it up in the hopes that you can get somebody a little bit more to work with. Nice, got the stack meanwhile.
Who is going to clear this stack? There isn't a Gyrocopter in this game. There isn't a Terrorblade. It is a Lifestealer who is going to get an armlet. I don't know who this stack is actually intended for. Ryoya himself can't clear it really quickly either. Otherwise, he would try and make an attempt at... But if Tiny could clear Ancients, he would have a much faster blink. I don't know who this stack is actually made for. This is a confusing play for Flea. I wonder if he's on autopilot mode a little bit, because that's something that he does every single time. He always makes time to stack for his allies, but I wonder if it's some misplaced effort, because who actually takes it on their team? I feel like it's more likely for the Tidehunter to make a rotation than take it than it is for actually any of his allies to.
Yeah. Might be, I don't know, a tag team play from multiple cores, but then if you're bringing 2 cores in to farm an Ancient stack, you're losing a little bit of that efficiency. As top lane, Duster got to get himself hit up. There's that spear into the arrow, into the Starstorm. Flea picks up the kill, and now they got to clear out. Mandy's coming in. Rupture will be thrown down, but Flea's just going to go for the quick TP home, and Bloodseeker, just like last time, there's really no cancel for that TP. He is
but Brax
chasing out of Brax, and here comes the zip in. It's a long one, but okay, it's...
no mana now.
Yeah. Unfortunate, but Mandy's still going. There we go. The Rebuke is going to bring that chase to an end. So, 2 cores take a shot at it. They're not able to catch Brax. They weren't able to catch Flea, and Team get themselves out of there with maybe not the highest value kill onto that Gyrocopter, but this duo continues trying to make these plays even after the laning stage itself comes to an end.
Yeah, and that's where, while this lane stage is still relatively boring, I'm surprised there aren't more players in the waves right now. Most of the carts have actually been cleaned up on both sides, and I don't really think any team is going for those big push-ins. This is a nice Moonlight Shadow coming in from Ryoya. He has the Blink Dagger, so if they find Suits here, that would be huge, but really good intuition on the Storm Spirit, ditching the camp before actually finishing it up. If he stuck around, he would have been falling prey to this Tiny, and he finally has the Blink Dagger, but if he's unable to make some collapse onto a hero in the mid lane, FG are doing a really good job of not giving him what he wants, and they're going to scout it out mid now, so they know.
They've got an idea now that the Blink Dagger's been picked up, and over in the bottom lane, see Heiko's been sort of not really putting too much damage onto the tower, but at least keeping this lane in a manageable position as they do check that tree line. A little bit too late for that, but they can get damage onto the tower, but now 2 heroes confirmed in the bottom lane means Duster's alone in the jungle. They'll quickly pick him off, but There was a TP from King RD to get into position. They've got Mandy coming in as well. The Terrorize will be deployed into the Rupture. That's going to be enough to take down Mike, but can they get Ryoya as well? He's going to try to make it out of here. The Avalanche will buy him some time, but the Gush comes in from Heiko, so Ryoya has nowhere to go. Tries for the toss-back play, but it's not going to be enough. Mandy will still run him down for the double kill, and that is largely going to be worthwhile. They lose the Gyrocopter, but they get 2 kills. The only downside is that they had to TP heroes away from that bottom push. So they're nowhere close to getting that tier 1, but 2-for-1 trade, including the all-important kill onto the Tiny, still going to favor them.
And that's where they can also put a little bit of chip onto the mid tower, a place where they shouldn't really be able to make a lot of their plays, but when the Tiny is off of the map, he is really the best hero to actually deal with this aggression, and not having to commit the Ravage there is honestly massive for them. And Heiko making it pretty obvious that he has his Blink Dagger here. He could actually get played on. Yeah.
Tossing him back. Will Heiko be able to get off the Ravage? Not yet, but Zeus comes in with that Electric Vortex. That's going to lead into the Ravage. Mike taken down. Ryoya and Brax, meanwhile, kind of get caught in the middle of that. Ryoya now needs help. Sammy's going to be able to infest him. The bonus HP will keep him alive, while Heiko off to the side trying to get himself away. Flea doesn't want to let him go. He could commit the leap charges, but there's going to be the blink out to get the Tiny to safety. Meanwhile, Sammy, he's trying to toggle the armlet, but there's no one here to help him. They split up too far. The 2 supports try to chase after the kill onto the Tidehunter, which means they leave the cores alone under the tower. Duster's able to finish the kill.
Yep, and a really good sentry behind the tier 1 means they see that they are Moonlight Shadowed. Duster, really greedy with his positioning. He could very easily get taken out here, but that is a lot of time. I think, Mike, you just gotta let him sleep. The entire reason Heiko was able to get such a good Ravage off is because he brain tapped him. He procced the Kraken Shell and gave away a little bit too good of an engagement here, and Heiko's on the run. Oh, good arrow. Perfect.
Meanwhile, in the river, Mike's going to throw down that Fiend's Grip, so they're looking for King RD. They're able to get him. Now Duster might be in some trouble as well. He has really no HP to work with. The spear comes through, not just getting the kill onto Duster, but also pushing back Mandy, but now Zeus into the fight. They're going to pull Brax in with the Vortex. They're able to finish him off. And that is going to make that one look a little bit better for that FG side, but they still lose 3 heroes across the map, and Sammy got the tower up top, able to claim that tier 1. Meanwhile, back mid, there's going to be the zip in. They went onto the Bane, but Mike's able to Nightmare himself. That buys a little bit of time, but not nearly enough. So they find that kill, but now look at the zip out from the Avalanche. Nicely done, and do they go any further? This is going to get risky, but there's the Rupture being deployed. Ryoya just trying to get himself safe, but the more he walks, the more damage he takes. Zip in, going to get Zeus on there, but he has no more mana to keep the fight going. He has to back off, but now Brack comes in with the arena into the spear toss, but where's the damage? There it is. Sammy comes in. They're going to be able to finish off that play. Now they went on to Heiko as well, as the Tidehunter is not going to be able to blink out. It's constantly canceled by Sammy, but does he have the damage for this? The Tidehunter is really not getting chunked down that significantly, and looks like Sammy is actually just going to infest into his teammate instead, trying to avoid that homing missile stun. While he does that, Flea was able to get that arrow in onto King RD. They find the kill as Sammy jumps out for the infest bomb, and well, Team are able to sort of win that engagement for now, but Mike, gotta be careful. Just got hit by the homing missile. Mandy's coming in, but that's going to be the Nightmare stopping him, or maybe not. Duster now pushes in, and now Heiko as well, dropping the Ravage onto 3. They're taking down Mike. They want to get Flea as well here. You see Zeus trying to track him down. The leap charges, though, get Flea away, but the chase continues, and the overload will be there for the last bit of damage they need. Flea will fall. Ryoya, though, turns around for the Avatos to take down Mandy, but that means Duster is going to continue to chase him. They get the Gush down, but now Sammy coming back into the fight. It's not going to be enough, though, to stop the Storm Spirit. Ryoya taken down. Brax will fall as well, and now Sammy is fighting by himself. He should get Duster, but that will bring an end to the fight, and the initial fight looked good for Team. The secondary fight very much going FG's way, and Heiko turned it around with that Blink Ravage.
Yeah, you don't respect the Ravage. You don't respect the fact that Zeus is really only up in another 5-10 seconds, and you play immediately into a Storm Spirit with full mana. Of course, you're going to get punished in those circumstances. They also outran a lot of their timings here. They weren't able to play around the fact that Brax is Mars. You went up into that high ground without the arena, so of course, you're going to fall flat on your face, and that is a huge fight for Zeus, who now has a full Orchid built up as well. That is massive for the Storm Spirit. And unfortunately, Ryoya, again, he's struggling to find plays. And the biggest issue, I think, for him, of course, he was having to play Queen of Pain versus Bloodseeker in the previous game, but at least you had that pure damage to rely on. Now, being ruptured as a Tiny is a very, very sad affair Fortunately for Team Team, they are finally able to take this Ancient stack that was definitely feeling a little bit awkward for them for quite a bit, but you have to wait for the full Sanj on Sammy Boy. That can't be too good. We're able to get the gyrocopter mid, yeah.
Yeah, Aurelia is going to be able to find a quick pick off there, but as low value as that might be, that's what you want from your Tiny, right? We mentioned Aurelia was kind of slowing down a little bit. That kill is going to help him finish off the Echo Saber, so you just want to get that Tiny involved again. 4-4 and 4 is obviously not the worst that we've seen, but you want more momentum for him, especially at this critical junction in the game as we approach that 20-minute mark. This is when both sides are potentially going to be looking to make plays, and right on cue, you see there, Ryoya is going to be infested, so Ryoya and Sammy are looking for somebody, and honestly, this is their moment. If they don't find the kill here, it's going to be just so painful for them, and yeah, Mandy is going to walk right into it. That's brutal. No idea that there were 4 heroes up on that high ground. By the time he figures it out, he's already dead, so just when we said Ryoya needed to sort of step it up, he finds 2 kills, and not looking so bad. Moves into 3rd place in terms of the net worth, and they may still be looking for more. You see Sammy, he's going to march his way up to the tier 1 tower mid, and nobody can stop him.
If they have Glyph, maybe they Glyph there and then try to make a play on his rage timing, but the only reason Mandy dies there as well is because of the warding plays Brax. Okay,
he's got to drop the arena. Defensive arena doesn't feel great, but that arrow comes in onto Heiko. Maybe Ryoya thinks about it. Oh my god, Suit's doing more than thinking. He's going to jump in. The Ravage will be there. They've locked down the Lifestealer. They need a little bit more damage, and they've got it. Sammy taken down. Ryoya now in trouble as well. Pops the Illusion Rune to try and get away, but the Curse Crown will still lock him in place, even through his own Avalanche. And who can save him, really? The Spear comes out. It will pin King RD, but that just doesn't matter. Ryoya still falls. Duster's sort of sniped out on the back end as Flea is able to get that kill, but not even remotely worth the loss of both their carry and their mid laner. As FG, that's very excellently executed on their part.
Rune Suits. If he gets Yulesed, okay. This ward's a little bit too good. This is the same ward that actually ended up killing Mandy, because without that smoke, of course, they would have scouted that rotation from before, but I'm very surprised that Brax... okay, he is finally queuing up the Blink Dagger before his BKB, but he bought out the Ogre Axe before, thinking that the Yule Scepter would be enough, and I think very simply it isn't enough. Unfortunately, they tried to make a play with the supports in the triangle, and without Tiny, they really don't have enough damage to do anything, so it was a very strange ward adventure that will get immediately punished by Duster.
Yeah, that was interesting. They get the arrow down onto the Dark Willow, and if it's just the Dark Willow alone, then yeah, maybe your support duo gets in there, but the second that they see the gyrocopter coming over as well, they realize there's not a lot we're going to be able to do here. But further to the north, Brax gets caught out by himself. Sooth jumps in. Mandy was able to hit him up with the Rupture, but the Yule Scepter is absorbing a lot of that duration. Brax, though, still has to hold his ground, and he is unable to do so, as Mandy will find that kill, and well, Brax just a little bit too far forward there, trying to farm his way towards that blink, as you mentioned, but that's not exactly going to get you too many opportunities wandering onto your opponent's side. But now you see Ryoya. He wants to make some sort of response here onto King RD, but not feeling like he has the ability to get in there, and probably thinking that the Dark Willow actually isn't alone, which, unfortunately for him, that's not the case. King RD is actually completely alone here, greeting out for a couple of camps, trying to get an item for himself.
Yep, and he does end up completing it, that being the Yule Scepter, of course, but the real obnoxious part of this hero is whenever this Aghanim Shard does come out. Unfortunately, if somebody was up here, King RD would just be dead. He'd be able to get mopped up by Mike, but now the alarm signals are going off in King RD's head. Is a little bit suspicious here, especially with the scan coming out bottom, not clipping on anyone. I think they understand that someone is playing up here. King RD could still get caught. They're being very patient, but as soon as the Tiny throws the tree at the wave, I think he knows that it is a very dangerous position to be in.
Yeah, just going to stick around for a little bit, not looking to get caught out, but also not willing to give up on a potential push if he can help it. And now, actually see him TPing directly onto the tier 2 tower, so he remains in the lane, and well, now the Bedlam's been used, this presents a problem, but the arrow will not connect. But now, King RD, if he didn't suspect before, he definitely knows now that there were opponents keeping tabs on him. But honestly, he's going to be relatively safe. He'll back off. This does maybe leave an opening if Team want to push onto that tier 2 tower top. And looks like for now they want to. But on the other side of the map, you see a similar group up from the FG side. So this could turn into really just a trade-off of those tier 2 towers unless somebody's looking to TP their way into a fight.
And unfortunately, with Sammy Boy showing mid, they're calling your bluff. They're saying, we push faster than you. We have cores in a position to actually hit buildings. Meanwhile, the Lifestealer is stuck in a position to not really do anything. And even though they're definitely putting damage onto this top tier tower, yeah, the defense is coming. And oh, Ryoya, you gotta be so quick.
Gonna be able to get themselves out for now. But okay, Heiko still wants to go. He's gonna gush up Flea, but I don't know if they can really catch up on this front, but here comes the Storm zipping all the way in. That certainly makes things easier as the silence comes in. Mech popped by Flea, but I do not believe that's going to be enough. Heiko gets the kill. Meanwhile, to the south, Ryoya turns onto King RD. Getting a little bit greedy there on the Dark Willow, but if it sets up, yep, there's going to be the Ravage into the Rupture. They throw down that Blood Right as well, and Ryoya is dropping low, but the Infest from Sammy gets him the bonus HP he needs, at least for now, but he is still getting hit up, and he will be taken down. Ryoya will fall. Sammy and Brax now trying to sort of stand up as the new front line, but they are rapidly losing their HP. The Yule Scepter is going to have to be used defensively to avoid the Blood Right, but that means Brax is still stuck in the fight. He will fall. Duster, meanwhile, very nearly finished off as well, survives on about 100 HP, but he will survive. And now Mike is the one's in trouble. The homing missile was on him the whole time. I'm not sure he realized. I think he assumed it was onto Sammy. So he is going to get stunned up and taken down, but Sammy's at least able to turn that into a 1-for-1 as he'll take Duster out. But, I mean, that trade is really not going to do a whole lot. Overall, very much a fight that FG come out ahead on. And for Team, I don't know. It felt like they were just getting away in that top lane, but the persistence pays off. They have to sacrifice the Dark Willow effectively to keep heroes in position, but it gets Heiko into that Ravage range.
Yeah, and Heiko was really uncertain about actually committing that Ravage. I think if Mike gets that sleep off a little bit sooner, that fight doesn't go so poorly for them, but that was also very simply the double BKB timing on both Sooths and Mandy that felt crushing. That's something they're so good at. Every single time they have those item synergies, they always push into their advantage, and the arena did absolutely nothing. More so than that, you had Suits able to back up Mandy, who was completely frontline for his squad. As soon as the combo actually landed onto the Tidehunter, he had to be a little bit worried about his life, but then that's where the Orchid came in. And okay, Suits.
He's going to get the kill, but now can he get out? Actually, he doesn't want out. He wants back in. Ryoya hit up by the Rupture. They gush him as well. That's a nice play from Sammy, though, just trying to keep him alive with the Infest health, but it's just not going to be enough. Ryoya is dead again. And now Sammy and Brax pretty much caught in the same situation they were last time. This time, however, they're going to back off, but they don't get the chance. There's going to be the Vortex pulling him back in. He gets the Rage off, but he needed that way before that lockdown came in, and well, without the Magic Community, he just gets wiped out. That's horrible for Team. 2 of their cores dead, 3 heroes gone in general. They really don't get anything out of that, and now you see FG, they're starting to move their way towards the Roche Pit.
And you see how seamlessly FG passed the baton as soon as Suits has to commit his BKB, because his tuition says that something is up. I'm killing a Bane on their outpost. There's no way someone isn't coming. Pops his BKB, doesn't allow Ryoya to kill him. But once the BKB is out, he completely gives Mandy full control of the fight. Mandy says, oh, I'm fine, dodges the spear with his BKB of his own. They're just playing so tight on FG. They're doing a really fantastic job of just playing around what they can and cannot do. That was a fight without Ravage as well, that they felt completely comfortable showing up and bringing every single member, and Team lose it. It just feels like right now Team are doing the exact opposite. They aren't really accurately getting as many heroes as they need. Flea was in the top lane. He was able to complete a full Greaves in the time that fight did go down, but is that really going to be enough to change the circumstances? Because for the second time in a row, Sammy Boy shows up to a fight, right-clicks for maybe 5 seconds, after Rage is expended, infests his Tiny, and the Tiny dies anyway. And I think as this game goes forward, we need to see some more. And okay, Suits, top lane.
Making the play up top. They get the arrow into the spear, or the other way around. Either way, though, they find the kills, but there's the Ravage connecting onto 2. That's going to buy some time for the Storm to respawn, and they want in onto Brax. He's able to dodge out the spear. His teammate does get locked down by it, but now the Fiend's Grip out from Mike. They actually keep the Storm Spirit locked in. That buys Flea enough time for another arrow, and Suits, he's actually going to die. They get him through the Aegis, and now Ryoya's into the fight. They want more. They're going to try to focus on the Tidehunter here. Not an easy target, so they might want to switch things up. Instead, they'll go after Duster, but Mandy comes in with the Rupture. That's going to kind of break up the plan a little bit here. Sammy doesn't want to chase that much further forward, but if you're Team, that was honestly excellent. They get the... Excuse me, they get the first life on the Storm, they bait out the Ravage from Heiko, and then they kill the Storm off a second time anyway, so a lot of resources committed by FG for not just no gain, but an actual active loss, although Ryoya does now need to be careful himself. The damage isn't here just yet, but you do see Mandy sort of prowling around. That's going to force out the BKB, but Arrow from Fleet connects onto Duster. Ryoya will turn around for the Avatos and gets himself a quick pick off onto that Gyrocopter.
Yeah, and I think Suits was expecting one of his teammates to make that trip a little bit sooner. I think if Heiko TPs and gets the pipe off before either the Spear or the second Starstorm actually lands, then that fight looks completely different, and it's a little bit awkward. Heiko is just right next to Sammy Boy. I don't think Sammy Boy can actually kill him, but all it takes is one or two throws like that, and then this game looks much more complicated for FG. Of course, Suits being dead for 80 seconds is already quite the big blow, but giving 800 gold over to Brax is also quite problematic, because now that was the first time that Ryoya used his BKB on the Tiny, but Brax has a fresh BKB of his own, and that's where the damage really needs to become tight. You can't afford to miss another Ravage like that on Heiko. Any more whiffs, and we're getting into the realm where Roche is going to be respawning, you're going to be ticking down, and if you throw any more fights like that, the game gets infinitely more hard or more difficult for you.
And Heiko, in his defense, he'd been pretty on point for a lot of this match. It's just sort of over the last attempt or two where things have gotten a little bit more difficult. So very much a situation where he can sort of right the ship and get back into that team fight controlling mode that FG want him to be in, but they're going to have to wait for their opportunity right now. The Ravage, though, is coming back up, but they do have eyes on Sammy. There's going to be the zip forward. They get the silence down. The Gush comes out as well. King RD is going to throw the Terrorize out, so that prevents that Rage, and, well, if you're locked down long enough, you just can't pop the Rage, and that's the second time now that they've actually found Sammy, and I believe that's in pretty much the same spot that he was picked off before, with regards to just chain stunning him until he's dead with no Rage.
Yeah, it's perfectly chained together. They don't drop the ball there, and you don't even have to commit the Ravage from Heiko. I think Sammy Boy really overestimated his ability to survive, especially versus the Orchid. That's why he's going for the Satanic, just being the best item for Lifestealer to build up that actually gives him things that he wants and is a debuff. It's not like you can necessarily go BKB on that hero every game. And Mandy, you got to be a little bit careful here. They're getting set up on the top lane, and Mandy might throw away the bag.
There it is. The Spear comes out. The arrow will follow. King RD cannot save his buddy. He is going to throw the Cursed Crown out, but there's nothing to do here. You got to back away. Try and get out while you can. Ryoya, though, blink up in 2 seconds. Just got to keep the chase going. He jumps in now. There's the Avatos. And Duster, not the time to get involved. Oh my goodness. Even through the Illusion Rune, he still gets clipped by that arrow. The Spear hits an illusion, but that's not going to matter. Duster will still be taken down. Ryoya picks up 3 kills to Team in total in a situation where every single one of those deaths was so avoidable. Mandy, after the glyph comes through, feels like maybe he should have done a little bit more to either scout out directly or at least suspect that they were setting up for a play on him. He thought it was just a casual, we're going to be getting this glyph back right away, so we might as well use it. Instead, he gets caught in a trap.
Yeah, and I think it's, again, a little bit of an unfortunate circumstance because Mandy thinks that he's safe because they have this fantastic ward scouting out the triangle, so he doesn't see them in the triangle. He doesn't see anyone pushing out the bottom lane. I think that's just a situation where you got to use your head. If you don't see them bottom, you don't see them in the triangle, and we're in mid, then they have to be top. And going for a play like that, he's outrunning his support. It's the second time a core on FG have done that, and it has really set them behind. Again, you lose the tier 2 mid as the objective that you lose because of a very simple misplay. It's almost textbook, and I really don't think FG can really afford to do that anymore. It's another 4k gold swing. In addition to that, Roche is going to be respawning. Of course, luckily for them, it hasn't respawned just yet, but it's still more speed over the team that they really have no business getting.
And did he actually? He did. He timed that perfectly. He completes the channel onto the outpost before the Cursed Crown hits him. Probably still would have taken it even if he does get stunned up beforehand, but you at least don't have to start the channel over. So, outpost into their hands. Meanwhile, Brax, he was on the hunt, but Sammy gets a little bit bored. Decides I'm being too inefficient right now. There's a creep wave I can push out down bot. So he'll make his way down bot, looking still for that Satanic, but he is getting pretty close at this point. So once that's picked up, it's going to be pretty hard to keep Sammy locked down. We have seen FG do it a couple of times, though. So much like the Rage, if you stun him up and keep him locked down long enough, he won't have the time to either pop the Satanic or get the right clicks. But just because they've done it twice before doesn't mean they can do it again, and it's going to presumably get harder to pull that play off the longer this game goes on and the stronger Sammy gets.
Yeah, and full Satanic, like you said, it's going to be incredibly difficult to now play around the Orchid. It's why I believe Suits has gone for the completed Bloodstone, but because he has Bloodstone, it means he doesn't have Kaya Sanj, it means that he doesn't have Shiva's Guard. He's going to be a little bit more vulnerable.
They got him!
Yeah.
No BKB coming out here as Suits is just straight up dead. That is exactly the play Team needed. And now Sammy, he's trying to continue chasing his way forward. Satanic was popped to get him out of that route, but doesn't have the speed now to catch up to anybody. But even if they don't get a secondary kill, that Storm just gets absolutely blown up, and the Storm just purchased an item, so he has no money for buyback if Team want to try and push this a little bit further, and Sammy is thinking about it. You see him making his way onto the high ground. Tier 3 tower starting to come under attack, so they're looking to chip away at this a little bit. That's going to force a response from FG. They've got heroes coming in, but Ryoya blinks forward. Avalanche comes out. Toss, though, not available, as there was the sort of Shadow Realm proc from King RD, but now Brax is in. Arena drops. Spear comes out. They've taken down Duster. Duster, though, immediately buying back, looking to help his teammates out, but by the time he's back into the fight, King RD now gets taken down, and he does not have his buyback available. Now, Mandy, hit up by the Nightmare, into the arrow, into the spear, into the Infest. And, well, they're not going to be able to get the kill at this point, but look at them just surging their way forward, forcing the BKB from Mandy, and this defense from FG is just so broken, they're not really going to be able to do anything. The Tier 3 tower's gone down, and now Nightmare onto Duster, locking him down. He just bought back, can't afford to die again, but he doesn't really get a choice in the matter. Sammy will bring him down, and it looks like Team are finally going to be able to finish off that middle lane of Rax. They take it in its entirety, and now, well, they're hungry for more. They're actually rotating their way top. Still nothing that their opponents can do. The Storm is coming back up, but you have no Ravage on Heiko, and your Gyrocopter is 55 seconds away, so you're not going to have the call down or the homing missile to sort of get you into the fight, and outside of that, your only initiation is that play right there. Asus tries to zip his way in, but they don't have the damage to bring down Brax. He's able to sidestep a lot of this lockdown, and this fight just feels so broken up right now, and here comes Sammy. Infest Bomb comes through, looking for the damage, not going to be able to get Mandy, and his teammates are, well, kind of stuck on the wrong side of the wall right now. Mike has gone down, but Ryoya jumps in. There's going to be the avalanche into the toss. Heiko actually got clipped by the arrow there as well from Flea, so he's locked down and finished off. But Team, okay, they're not going to back off. Sammy's going back in again, and that's going to force a response. Suits has to zip forward. He's going to silence himself off of that, off of that Lotus, so he's got to back off for a little while. Sammy, meanwhile, was dropped low, but he'll pop the Satanic and heal back up, and it looks like this siege is finally going to come to an end. But look at what Team got. The entire middle lane taken, Tier 3 and melee racks claimed in the top lane, and your Bane and Brax really losing or being lost on their own side, that's really not that bad.
Yeah, and the bigger problem and the entire problem of this Bloodseeker hero being forced into a safe lane position is, unless you have the Rupture to control out these heroes, these are just going to hit you. You're going to get up in their face. They're both very strong strength melee carries, and you lose without an armor item. He's going immediately for damage on Mandy, and I think this is the wrong build. And look at Sammy Boy. He has a full Silver Edge right now. He has gotten everything out of these fights, and
Rupture actually was thrown onto Flea, though not Sammy. So Sammy continues to chase. Meanwhile, King RD picked off by Ryoya. That does provide an opportunity, though, for Seuss to try to get on the back line. He's going to be able to bring down Mike, but they need bigger targets. They need to try and get Sammy. Sammy, though, actually using the Infest to get Flea a little bit of extra health, and that will get the Mirana away to safety as Brax and Ryoya come back in. They collapse onto Mandy, and now Duster will be cleaned up as well. That leads them directly into the Roche Pit, and FG, it kind of feels like in a lot of situations they are panicking a little bit, just trying to go for any kill that they can get and overextending because of it.
Yeah, and top.
They're going in. They've got the Storm. Arrow is going to come in from long range. Do they have the damage, though? That stun, it doesn't matter. It lasts forever. Wow, they had all the time in the world to get that one.
And there is buyback. I think they're valuing their Ravage, their final Ravage, over having this buyback available to them, but this is still disastrous because now, of course, they're just going for tier 4s. They don't care about the bottom lane.
Looking to push for the win. Tier 4 tower dropping low. Hex out, though. That is going to slow up the lifestealer a little bit, but as soon as the Hex wears off, Sammy's going to keep going, and if this fight actually breaks out, he has Satanic. He has the Aegis. There's not a lot for him to worry about. Okay, buyback comes in from the Storm. He will rejoin the fight, but Sammy quickly hops into his buddy, and he will start healing up inside of Brax. And now Brax, he wants to go back in. That Blink Dagger is not available to him. Meanwhile, Suits trying to provide some sort of relief on the back line, but it's just not going to be enough. Duster is going to be locked down, taken out, no buyback available. The second tier 4 tower is now under attack, and I'm not sure what they can do. Heiko has the Blink Ravage. That is really their best bet. They will go in for it now, but Brax had already popped the BKB, but the Storm Spirit will zip his way forward, but can they actually get any kills here? They do bring down Fleet. That's a good start, but they need more. They need to keep Sammy away from the fight, or at least bring him down, one or the other, but they really just can't do it. You see Heiko just getting pushed back. Sammy with the Satanic back to full HP, as he will find that kill. Meanwhile, on the steps of the base, they are trying for the kill onto Brax. Not going to be able to get it, though, as the Yule Scepter will keep him fighting, but you see Seuss continuing to try and go in for this one. He does get the kill, but now he has to fall back. And Sammy just is really going to win that one out. Can Mandy and Seuss do something to turn this game around? They've got to give it a go. They're out of time. They have to move in now, but oh, that's not going to be enough. Mandy gets taken down. Ryoga goes in for the toss-back play. The Storm is still zipping around, but it's just not going to be enough, GG. And there's the GG.
Whoa.
Okay. That's not cool.
You feel like Team won that one, but Zero MS player is actually such a good flame. I can't even fault them for that. Suits really hit him up. Also got the last word before the DC, but yeah, a little bit uncalled for, I think, coming from Team, and definitely not justified. We'll see if that has any repercussions in their next series, I suppose. But yeah, that's a wild way for this to end, actually.
Now, Team able to get the win, and yeah, we'll see, especially after the warning that gets issued in Game 1. So I don't know. That's going to be at the admin's discretion, but we're towing the line a little bit there in between what's okay and what's maybe a little bit too far. But Team, they get the win. So I understand where they're coming from. You got to keep it contained, though. If you put your team in a bad position for this next series, you're going to feel a little bit foolish. But they win it out. They're able to make it happen, getting themselves back-to-back wins here. And this was much tighter in terms of the execution compared to what we saw in Game 1. While they were able to win both games, they looked more cohesive, more in control here. The only times where we really saw them falling behind is when the Tidehunter was able to make big plays.
Yeah, and for the second time in a row, we weren't able to see FG close out a lead that they worked very hard to get. Of course, the net worth lead didn't ever veer too far out of control, but XP-wise, they were consistently winning fights that Team were unable to. There was a lot of circumstances where I think FG completely outplayed their opponents, but it all started in the top lane where they misused their Aegis once. They undervalue how much damage that Brax and Fleet can bring to the party, and two misplays like that, losing your Storm Spirit, and then having to commit the Ravage to try and get kills after the fact, it is honestly a disaster for them. And it's the thing that really starts them down this path where suddenly Sammy Boy is the most farmed hero on the map. Mandy at no point in this game is actually able to stand up and fight him. Even in those early engagements where Sammy Boy was struggling to fight versus the entire squad of FG, it was because Sooths was closing the distance and finding those key orchids onto him, where after he got that Satanic, it really felt like there were no more shots for you to kill this lifestealer. And for the second time, FG, after the 25-minute mark, 1-2 misplays, game falls apart. It kind of sucks. Zero MS player.
Yeah, not quite getting the execution that they needed. Team, meanwhile, deliver with a 2-0 sweep, but now they're looking for even more. They've got 2 points on the board, and they will be moving on into another matchup against a South American squad. They will be facing off against No Ping in just a little bit. Just No Ping's second series of this entire event, so we haven't seen a whole lot from them in the event so far. They will be making that appearance and going up against the team currently sitting in first place. So we are going to be moving along to that series in a little bit here, so we will be hopping into a bit of a commercial break, but when we return, it will be Game 1 between Team Team and No Ping. So sit tight, we'll be bringing you that Game 1 draft in just a few minutes.